Thank you. Good morning. My name is Lily, and I'm CEO and founder of Cat Labs. And at Cat Labs, we build tools to fight crypto crime. But actually, very recently, I spent about a decade working for the government. I was a special agent with Department of Justice, and I ran a cryptocurrency investigations task force for about 10 years, and recently left to start my own company. So originally, my goal here was to throw some really scary statistics at you about how cryptocurrency is invading crime, every facet of crime, and why we should be very afraid. But I think I'm going to change this strategy and tell you a story instead, actually. And the story is about a young woman about this tall, blonde, blue-eyed, but about 10 years ago. And actually, my mom really likes this story, so you should too. It's about me. The story starts with this young woman that left the Basic Agent Training Academy, very ambitious and hopeful, and with a lot of ambition to take down the biggest criminals of the world. And so at first, this was about 2013, I was put into a money laundering task force. And so this money laundering task force was primarily focused on investigating crimes, money laundering investigations that had to do with drug cartels and terrorist organizations laundering money. So within the first year, I learned everything there is to know about money laundering, traditional money laundering techniques. This would be trade-based money laundering, black market peso exchange, money mules, anything, shell accounts, structuring and integration, all of the general traditional facets of money laundering for large criminal organizations. And one thing that I couldn't really understand at the time is, why is this so complicated? These big organizations are spending over 30% of their budgets, revenue, on the process of money laundering. And not only that, it's extremely risky. So, when you walk around with a big duffel bag full of cash, it's not exactly discreet, so they get caught all the time. So it's not a really safe or efficient way to launder money, I felt like, in my mind. And I was 25 years old, so I knew everything, obviously, like all 25-year-olds think they do. So I thought there had to be a better way here for them to do this. And actually, as a matter of fact, I started remembering getting introduced to this magic internet money called Bitcoin, actually a year prior, before I was hired, back in 2012. And back in 2012, and in January, I was actually introduced to Bitcoin from an episode of The Good Wife, which is an American television show. It was called Bitcoin for Dummies. And back then, I did a little bit of digging about what it was. I was very interested in the technology. I'm a little bit of a nerd, and I also have an economics background. And so this new technology was purporting to be a peer-to-peer monetary system without an intermediary, without being controlled by any state, essentially digital cash. And I thought it was a pretty magical invention. I didn't really give it much more thought after that. But once I started learning about all of these different, very complicated ways that these criminal organizations were laundering money and getting caught all the time while doing so, I thought, well, Bitcoin sounds like a really great way to launder money. Because why? It's transfer of value across borders instantaneously and cheaply and anonymously, with no intermediary and no regulation and it's perfection, right? As opposed to the traditional ways of laundering money. So I thought somebody must be doing this. One of these bad guys must be using Bitcoin to launder money. It's been a couple of years since Bitcoin was originated or created. So I started looking into it, asking around, nothing. Nobody ever saw Bitcoin at that point being used as a money laundering tool by these organizations. But I started hearing about Bitcoin being used in another setting, which is the dark web. And at the time, I didn't know much about the dark web, but somebody explained to me what it was, where Bitcoin was used on the internet, on the dark side of the internet, the encrypted side of the internet, for buyers and sellers to trade in illicit goods and services, primarily drugs and others as well. So that's the extent of the information that I received at the time. So I thought, okay, well, this was actually really the first real use case for Bitcoin outside of price speculation, an actual group of people that was using Bitcoin for a specific purpose. So that night, I went home and I was sitting on the couch with my husband, my then husband, watching a movie as we usually did, and I pulled out my laptop and started digging into what the dark web was. As my husband was giving me the side eye because he hated when I did this. It was a very nerdy thing to do during our quality time together. In no time, I ended up on the dark web market, and I made an account, and it was essentially an Amazon. It was absolutely mind-blowing. I've never seen anything like it. It was drugs, it was malware, it was hacking tools, anything you can imagine illegal. It was being openly advertised and sold by international global network of vendors. And not only that, they also had ratings and reviews, just like on Amazon. So for example, if I ordered from someone cocaine and the cocaine was really great, I'll leave them a review saying, great cocaine, 10 out of 10, highly recommend, fast shipping, and everybody would look at that, and these vendors would have this kind of reputation, and then other people would buy from them because they have this reputation. So as I'm looking at it, I just can't believe what I'm seeing. And in addition to this, they also had customer service, just like any other regular market like Amazon. If I ordered cocaine and I received sugar instead in the mail, I can actually make a complaint to the market moderators and file a dispute and get my money back. It's pretty incredible. And so as I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that Bitcoin is the main payment method for all of these illicit goods and services, there's hundreds of listings from vendors all over the world. And now I all of a sudden realize this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to focus on. This is mind-blowing. Why did nobody tell me about this in the last year that I've been working at the agency? It was kind of very niche. Somebody was working some cases, but it was nothing like it is today, right? And so as I'm looking at a listing of 100% Afghan heroin, and my husband's looking at my screen, what the hell are you looking at? And I said, look, they're actually selling drugs openly on the internet with Bitcoin. And so I started kind of getting into it and into the technicals of it. And he, of course, I lost him at that point. And he said, well, this is what I get for marrying a nerd. And that was the end of the conversation. But I was very excited. So the next morning, I stormed my boss's office, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and super excited, and I say, boss, I want to buy drugs with Bitcoin. And he says, who's Bitcoin? And I said, okay, let's rewind. So I explained to him what I found, and his eyes glaze over even more, and he basically agrees to everything I say, just probably to get me out of his office as soon as possible. Because it was a little bit too much technical mumbo jumbo for his taste at that point. But I used that opportunity to actually start doing undercover investigations on these dark web markets. And what followed was 10 years of an incredible journey of doing exclusively cryptocurrency and dark web related investigations. As a matter of fact, I started a task force over the following 2 years or so that was comprised of several federal agencies in the United States, including FBI, IRS, HSI, Secret Service, Postal Inspection Service, DEA, etc. And we exclusively targeted very large-scale cryptocurrency investigations. And I did some really crazy stuff that nobody ever did before. For example, I created a storefront on the dark web pretending to be a money launderer and actually catching vendors that would cash out through my money laundering service. So that was one of my initiatives. Another initiative that also was never really done before was an undercover operation where I, instead of doing cash to bank account, which is what our traditional undercover operations would do, I would actually take the cash and put it into cryptocurrency for the bad guys. And I would actually ask some of the guys in my task force that were doing traditional money laundering cases, hey, can you ask your bad guy if I can, if they want Bitcoin instead of regular bank accounts, because it'll be faster, it'll be cheaper. And a couple of them said yes, but it didn't catch on because at that point, Bitcoin was so volatile, the price was so volatile that even though it was fast, it was efficient, but they didn't like the volatility in price. And then what happened in 2020 during COVID is kind of a perfect storm. The cryptocurrency market went into a bull market, and also a lot of stable coins started to appear. Stable coins that were cryptocurrencies but were pegged to the US dollar. And that changed the game 100%. And my prediction that criminals were going to use cryptocurrency to launder money came true very, very, very fast. To the point, well, right now, actually last week, I spoke to some of my former colleagues. They don't even want traditional money laundering anymore. Drug cartels are now wanting exclusively cryptocurrency, cash to stablecoins to launder money, right? And it happened very fast, and now it's infiltrating every facet of crime. Terrorist organizations are using it to launder money and finance their operations. Drug cartels are using it. Even Italian mob is paying drug traffickers in Bitcoin and Monero. It's absolutely everywhere. It's not dark web anymore exclusively. It's not just cybercrime. It is everywhere. And cybercrime has also exploded because cryptocurrency has made it extremely easy to monetize these kinds of crimes like hacks, scams, and fraud. So what started happening with hack, scams, and fraud is actually state actors began to do this and hack into American companies and other types of companies and critical infrastructure to steal cryptocurrencies. So North Korea stole about $3 billion in cryptocurrency to finance their operations. Chinese organizations are now some of the biggest cryptocurrency money laundering organizations in the world. And as a matter of fact, when I was running my undercover operation, cash to crypto, the Chinese were actually undermining our operations because they were giving very, very cheap rates, like 1% to 2% broker fees, as opposed to the ones that we were charging about 5% or 5 to 10% sometimes. So it's really spilling out into every facet of crime. And it's not necessarily a horrible thing for us, because actually if we know what we're doing, we can do a really good job at tracing funds and seizing a lot more funds in illicit activity than ever before. But we can't do it with the current solutions. We have to scale. Right now, the current solution is you have a couple of agents an intel analyst in your agency that it's a handful of them that know cryptocurrency investigations, and essentially everybody goes to them. It's like a funnel, and this is not a scalable solution. We need to make it so that every single cop, every single agent, and intel analyst knows how to do a crypto case, because any case can turn into a crypto case, right? And how do we do this? More tools, more education, right? And more automation, specifically automation tools that make it so that your investigators don't have to have a degree in cryptography in order to do a crypto case. And that's it for me.